Welcome to the Barker Podcast Collection.
I suck, you suck, I suck at Call of Duty.
Welcome to the Not Playing Podcast. My name's Rob Howard, and this week I'm joined by
Ian Bruce,
Patrick Kane,
and Adam Scott. Hello.
You can contact us on email at notplayingpodcast@gmail.com or follow us on Twitter at notplayingpod. Right, so it was E3 last week, but just before that, Oculus had a little bit of a event where they showed us all what the consumer Rift is going to look like.
Woohoo!
Yeah, that was kind of the reaction, I think.
Well, not immediately.
A lot of people would.
They hilariously tried to do like an Apple-style conference without Apple's marketing team,
And also in front of press,
was a
who were not
little
going to
bit-
clap anything. It was
a
fucking
little bit
hilarious.
cringy. And I think the fact they did it really early in the morning didn't help much. Everyone was very tired. But yeah, it was a little bit cringy. But the actual announcements themselves, fucking cool.
Yeah.
I absolutely I kind of embarrassed myself when they actually announced the input, because I I did do some very, very loud woohooing, and my neighbours probably wondered what the fuck was going on. I was very, very pleased when they announced that. So basically they've announced, well, a few things. One, the most surprising thing is that it's going to be shipping, due to a Microsoft partnership, it's going to be shipping with an Xbox One controller.
Yeah.
Which is, as they've kind of explained afterwards, the controller that most of us are using to control most of the experiences. So that's kind of cool. It was it felt a little bit like trolling, because at the start everyone was like, what that's your input scheme?
Yeah.
The tumbleweed
Full
was
stop,
flowing
like
past.
that-
It was excellent.
That's what? So yeah, everyone was just a bit like, yeah. But to be fair, yeah, in retrospect, it's cool that developers know that there is at least one set controller that they can design for, and it just happens to be the one that they've been designing for the last 3 years anyway.
So, sorry, did you say
that's
it's
kind
an
of
Xbox One controller?
Xbox One controller.
Is this the new one that costs 150
No,
quid?
not the elite one.
No.
Okay.
No, just the standard.
It's not that much of
but
a relationship with Microsoft.
No. Another thing they announced, which was really surprising, which is also to do with Microsoft, is that you're going to be able to stream Xbox One games to your PC and play them on a large virtual cinema environment. And everyone just kind of went, "What the fuck would you want to do that?" It's a really, really bizarre thing, and it kind of, do you know what it kind of sounded like to me? It's kind of like Oculus is the kid at school that smokes, and Microsoft is like the kid that follows him around going, toes on that, toes on that, toes on that. And then like when he hands him the little fucking butt, it's just Microsoft just sucking in this little filter and just looking really pleased with himself, making sure everyone sees, just like they know he smokes. It's kind of that.
Dear listener, be
It's
glad
kind
we're
of
not
like,
doing
can you
we're not doing any video for this, because it's fucking terrifying what that's doing.
That is hilarious.
No, I know exactly what you mean.
It's kind of cool in a weird gimmicky way, but I don't think it's really a feature that anyone asked for, and it did kind of reek of like, we're sort of doing something VR as well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind
Which
of
is
like,
kind of
can you
fair
make
enough.
it work? Oh,
Which
go
is-
on, please make it work.
It's
You can't
kind of
really
fair
make
enough.
it work. Can you just do this? Yeah.
It's kind of fair enough, because they are pouring so many resources and all their energy into HoloLens. And, obviously that's their baby. And do you know what I really think would be the best thing to come out of an Oculus-Microsoft partnership would be Oculus designing a VR headset for the Xbox. Don't fucking spend another £10 billion trying to make your own headset, trying to reinvent the wheel. Just get Oculus to design it for you, just like with the Samsung Gear VR. get them to make it for you. That is what they should do. Maybe that's what's going to happen down the line. Maybe that's the part of the partnership that we don't know about. Who knows?
Are they just going to get the Rift to work with it though? Or
maybe
is there
that
some
as well,
stuff
but
that would stop it. But
I would think it would be more likely that Microsoft would ask Oculus to make them an Xbox branded, Oculus designed headset than say, okay, yeah, we'll just done.
Yeah.
We now work with your hardware. I don't think that doesn't seem as likely to me. That would be cooler for consumers, but I don't think
it would work with their hardware.
Oh,
I can't see a reason why it wouldn't work with their hardware.
Well, it's already sat on Windows anyway, and that's all an Xbox really is a Windows, like a shitty Windows PC, isn't it? Really? Like,
yeah.
Welcome, brother.
Just a low-powered Windows PC laptop.
You're such a PC snob, Rob.
But yeah, the big announcement was obviously the input, the Half Moon controllers. And this is absolutely massive. It's massive news, and it's been the thing that so many people have been trying to find out. Most importantly,
that's the one.
Because developers want to know what they're writing for. They want to know what kind of experiences they can design, and until they know what the input is, they don't know what they can do. So this is awesome. So basically, what you've got, it's kind of like. It's like they've cut an Xbox controller in two. So you've got A and B on one side, and you've got X and Y on the other. And you've got finger triggers. You've got little shoulder buttons, and the whole thing is kind of mapped with a kind of those old swords with the kind of hand guard thing. It's kind of like those hand guards. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and they're covered in tracking sensors. LEDs which are tracked by a sensor, similar to the one that tracks the positional tracking of the DK2, and it means you've got super accurate positional tracking of the player's own hands, which means you've put the hands into VR, which is massive. That's what we're all been waiting for. But you've also got the functionality of a standard Xbox controller. You've got something that's tried and tested and that people have been designing around for years anyway. So it's kind of a best of both worlds thing, really. I mean, the kind of initial reaction on our Oculus and the kind of VR websites is like, well, Lightbox is laser, so there's no occlusion problems. You won't lose track of it when you put it behind your back and stuff like that.
You said Lightbox. I think you meant.
Did I say Lightbox?
I think you meant Lighthouse, my friend.
Yeah, I don't know what Lightbox is, but yeah. Because it's using LEDs to track it. So if you did put them behind your back, it would lose tracking. People have argued that there's all sorts of different camera setups that you could use that could get around that. I'm not sure it's really as big a deal as people are making out. It's quite a small amount of people talking about it anyway. But yeah, there's been loads of really good feedback from people demoing at E3. People saying, I read some guy's kind of demo experience where he said he was in the room and they've got this toy box room where you can pick up all these different props and interact with them in different ways using these controllers. And he said, but it's multiplayer. And he said Palmer Luckey kind of signed in one of the other booths. And he said that when you saw that he's kind of logged in and he's moving the controllers, even though these were just kind of abstract orbs of light or whatever, it was like feeling that there was another person in the room because their movements were translated so well through these controllers, which is so exciting to hear. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. So there's been a few demos that people have been trying, but yeah, and ultimately, other than that, I think the biggest news is that the tracking area seems to be a lot larger than it is on the DK2. That all the demos have been standing as they have been previously, but people have been able to move all the way around a much larger space without losing tracking. So that's a big thing as well. I've been thinking about this recently. I wonder how many developers are actually going to target the room size VR experience. It is absolutely the coolest thing ever. But I just wonder how many when you've got something as niche as like the first year of consumer VR, like if you're a developer, are you going to want to like divide that small group of people into a subset of people who can have like a room that's completely empty with just a VR tracker in it?
They do want VRcades, the so-called VRcades, to kick off, where it's dedicated shops or stores where you just go and do VR. And I could see the standing big area experience being a thing for that, but I don't know who's really going to develop for that, because that's not a big enough market for the large publishers and developers to do anything, as you said. So I don't know.
I mean, I'm sure they will be there. I'm sure like small indie developers will go, okay, I've got this kind of cool, quirky idea that I could build just with me and a couple of other guys, and it won't take too much time, and we'll do this kind of room only experience. But I can't see people putting a lot of resources into it.
I don't think that's going to be a first stage thing. I mean, it'll be there, but there'll be a couple of killer apps for it, and that'll be it, because nobody else will want to invest any money. Which is a shame. I kind of
decorated my flat when I moved in with that in mind, but I'm a uber VR nerd. Like,
yes, my friend,
most people won't do
that.
Most people will not do that.
No, I certainly can't do that here. This room isn't big enough for that. No, I can't do it in the lounge without having to contact a lawyer. So,
there's a bed in the way.
I'd have to do it wherever my computer is, and unfortunately, because of because of my life circumstances, my computer's in my little office upstairs, away from the family area. Now, obviously, that might change in the future, but I think there's a lot of people who would not just have the physical. If they're going to make this work as a medium, which is something there's been some reports of, then you're going to have to try and push it out to as many people as possible. And therefore, you've really got to build the product to work with like the lowest kind of denominator of play space, and you've got to do it. Otherwise, because if you make it that you could do it, but you need this and you need all this space and this everything, it's not going to take off.
So, and there's enough people just miffed off at the fact that the touch controllers are coming out after the headset.
Yeah.
So people are going, "Oh, why are you fragmenting input at day one?" And there's a good reason for it. The reason is they have to get it right. They have to give developers enough time to make experiences for it to be worth people even buying those inputs. There's no point in buying sending out bundled inputs when there's no games built for it. It's completely pointless. And also, like, they want to keep the cost down as well. There's plenty of people that only want Rifts to play driving simulators or flight simulators, or they only want them for
360 movies.
360 movies or
dating simulators.
Other types of movies. But, like, do you know what I mean? Not everyone is going to need those inputs. I think I can see it being really good that there's going to be a standard eventually, but yeah, you don't want to, like, my point is that you don't want to fragment it even more by saying, and if you want to play VR, you have to have a completely empty room.
The onus will be on the developers to make games that work with both, because as soon as you have one that is just for the dual-wheeled controllers, and for the Vive as well, I don't really see how the Vive is going to work without having another input device.
You call it the Vive, I'm calling it the Vive.
I can't remember, what's the right way to call it, the Vive?
I don't know, I thought it was
the Valve one, let's call it the Valve product.
The
Valve
Vive.
The Volva. The Volva, yeah.
Volva.
It made me think about the Connect. I mean, part of the reason I never got involved with that was just because of the space it took up. I mean, regardless of whether it was any good or not, I just didn't really have any room for it.
And that's one of the problem. I think that's one of the reasons the Connect didn't work like Microsoft wanted it to. They foolishly went with the assumption that everybody has 2.5 to 3 meters depth and the correct spread width-wise to play these games in, and a lot of people don't. Some people have a family room or a lounge, and some people are parents and kids living in a house, but not everybody is. So, I would hope that these companies have learnt from that experience, and the standing up and moving around stuff doesn't become the thing.
I
guarantee
you it won't, though, man.
I don't think it will.
I honestly don't think it will. I think most things will be sitting down.
Yeah, and that's what I think. That's what I mean about it's not something for the first period, for the first phase or stage, because until I don't even know when that's for, because my house isn't going to get bigger in 5 years' time. Well, hopefully I'll be in a fucking house in 5 years' time, but if I am, there needs to be something else happening in between. I don't know what that's going to be, but I agree with you. I don't think it's going to be the thing that breaks it, but perhaps only because we've seen this before with the Connect, where they went, oh, if you've got an enormous lounge, you can do all this shit, and most people don't. You do it once a year at Christmas, and it was pretty shit, most of them anyway. Don't really want to dance with Han Solo, really? No, I don't want to do that.
And especially when one of the things that like Oculus is saying is that they're passionate about VR, kind of like removing well, not removing. What's the word? They want to give everyone a Ferrari, basically.
Yeah.
They want to make people. They want to give experiences to people that wouldn't be able to afford those experiences, and then so it would be rubbish to kind of limit it and say, well, you need a spare room entirely for VR to do that. So I really don't think that is going to happen.
No. It would work for schools.
I think it's going to be. It would be, I think that's the thing. It's going to be used for like schools, one-off things, cool, like, I don't know, theme park stuff, arcade stuff, educational stuff.
Yeah.
If you're an architect and you're using it, that's perfect for like visualizing rooms and stuff like that, or whatever design. So there's loads of different uses for it, but they're probably not all mainstream gaming ones.
No,
so much.
I think that'll be more niche for a while, for a long time.
Yeah, but it will be some of the coolest stuff at the same time. I think some of the room-based stuff, having like something I found through just having the Gear VR and just being untethered and being able to just like walk about without having to worry about cables and stuff. It does feel more natural, and it does. Well, it's a bit much to say it lends itself to presence, but I can totally see how it would when you've got high-end VR and you've got positional tracking that's very, very, accurate, and you've got your hands in the game as well, and you're able to move around in a space. I think that's going to really lend itself well to presence. And I think the cool thing about it is you can probably build a lot of very interesting and unique experiences that are just based in one room. So instead of it being, a dungeon thing where you're moving from room to room, there's probably loads of cool things you could do, like virtual DMing. You could do
the video game. My God, that would work.
Yes, yeah. You could do Dungeons and Dragons, and you could have like a virtual. You could have a whole virtual kind
Sherlock
of
Holmes games,
out in front of
Myst
you.
games where you're looking around the room for something.
Yeah.
All of these things. I mean, these are all traditional games that hopefully will not just be dumped in VR, and new things will come along that cater for VR as a genre, maybe. But
Sherlock Holmes' hidden object game with room scale VR would be pretty cool.
No copyright on Sherlock Holmes either, I believe. So,
yeah, it's public domain.
Away you go,
Unity.
I was just thinking we could maybe get onto some of the games they showed at E3, and also some of the Morpheus stuff. There was quite a good showing as far as VR goes. Some people were still saying it didn't have that much of a presence at the conferences, but of course that's not really where you want to see it, because there's only really so much you can do with a big screen on a stage. So yeah, anyway, I think it definitely went to some ways to sort of showing the kind of support that VR is getting from like some more well-known developers like Insomniac.
There's about 30 doing Morpheus games, aren't they?
Yeah, but on the Oculus demo there was this game Edge of Nowhere, which is a third-person game, but it's actually done specifically for VR. They've said the way that you navigate around they've had to sort of build it out a bit differently, because you're not always using one thumb to look around now. You're just looking around more naturally. Yeah. And this goes some ways to sort of affirming what you were saying, Pat, about how third-person stuff can work with it. But yeah. It's like a bit of a Lovecrafty, Uncharted sort of looking game.
Yeah, it's got a real kind of Mountains of Madness kind of vibe. Which is, I think it looks really cool.
Yeah, snow and tentacles. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, were there any other standout titles that you saw?
So we've done we've done Lucky's Tale and stuff before, which had a presence there, and I think there were a few other things that have been shown off before with updates. 1 second.
Yeah, I saw.
Rigs
like
for
that
the Morpheus.
Rigs, yeah, that looks great.
Oh yeah,
Headmaster as well. That
yeah,
that
I love that.
That kind of
So obvious.
I saw that and I was like, oh god, that is so obvious. Someone just got really rich.
Yeah.
But yeah, that looks great. They I think the Morpheus stuff looks really cool. I'm really excited to check some of that stuff out.
Yeah, they apparently had loads of stuff on the show floor, but not a lot, like, actually in the press conference.
Yeah, there was Time Travel VR, which looks absolutely gorgeous, which is like a basically like another kind of VR dinosaur experience. That's built with a CryEngine. Super gorgeous looking game.
Crytek are doing something as well, aren't they? I forget what it's called, but they've got like a
Bollocks,
sort of.
Yeah, Traveller.
Is that it?
No, something. I think it's called
Robinson the Journey. Is that what you gentlemen tried?
Robinson
That's
the
it.
Journey.
That's
it,
the one I
sorry.
was thinking of. Yeah.
Scroll down the Reddit page for this podcast. There we go.
Yeah, I was trying to.
Sorry, yeah, that's the one that's CryEngine, isn't it? Sorry, I'm getting them confused. But yeah,
Wow.
it just looks absolutely amazing.
Yeah. So, what else was there? I think Rebellion are making Battlezone for the Morpheus.
Yeah.
That looks alright. It looks a
and there was
bit.
this really looks a bit.
It looks a bit safe, to be honest. It looks a bit.
Which one's this? Sorry.
Battlezone.
It's the old school.
Yeah,
like,
I was quite
used to be
excited when I
line
saw
art.
the trailer, and then when I saw the content, I went, "Oh."
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean it's.
I'm sure if it's a VR game, I'm sure that it's going to be completely different and new in there, because Battlezone was kind of like one of those original VR things
you had
anyway.
the thing up on your face and
Yeah,
shit. And
if you had the controller,
Yeah.
I imagine with the controllers and doing all your left, right punches and forwards and backwards and stuff, I'm sure it'll be quite good fun. But
I think
yeah, I know what you mean.
for me it looks like how I hope there are not many games like this where they go, well, nobody's done an asteroids, let's do an asteroids. And they just start iterating through
let's
this
do them
content we
all
had
again.
30,
Yeah.
40 years ago.
And let's do it with
Yeah.
sort of ironic,
And we'll end up with another
old
fucking
school
ET.
graphics.
And nobody really
Yeah.
wants that, so let's not do that. Some of them would be great. Pitfall would be good. First person Pitfall. I'm sure there'll be tons of that. That game with the snow and the Mountains of Madness
What,
thing.
swinging over pits in VR.
Yeah.
Feels pretty good.
Does it?
One of the games I made was like a driving game with basically like you could see through the bottom of the car, and it was doing big jumps over canyons, and those jumps felt great. Like just because you got that sense of immediate like vertigo as you go over it. It's an effect that kind of appears as you go over that kind of.
It's only the
leap.
sideways movement that makes
It
you
does
want to
feel
puke,
really cool.
Really.
All right,
Yeah,
so,
it's only
so
that
something
doesn't
like-
make you feel sick seeing.
something like either a Tarzan or a Spider-Man sim where you're swinging from
Well, there's already
along the things.
there's already one of those called Windlands, which is like a low poly.
Yeah.
You throw this. Let's call it rope for the sake of copyright. You fire this
Yeah, okay.
rope from
Yeah.
your wrist, and you get stuck on trees. And you can either do it like Quake 2 Grapple, where you go
Sticky
you throw
rope.
it. Yes, sticky rope, steady.
It's a sticky rope.
You spew your sticky rope on a massive green orb, and then it'll pull you up. So you can either do it direct to point, or you can swing on it as well, and it works really, really well. It's only strafing that really, I think for most people, causes an issue. Of course, some people will feel sick generally. People always will. Friend of the show, Mr. Wicks, gets nauseous with normal FPSs, and many people do. So there will always be somebody who's a bit fucking weird.
Yeah, he is a big Jesse, that guy.
You can't. We'll have to get him on here to start some excellent mum humour.
A rebuttal.
But
that vertigo stuff doesn't make you feel sick. It's just like it's the feeling you get as you get to the top of the roller coaster.
Yeah.
It's like the whoa. It's not like which is what
that's the kind of thing.
That's when you go sideways and stuff like that.
That's the kind of thing that I've kind of want to experience, that whole swinging sensation. You know, the pitch.
I tell you what. Banking in planes, that feels so good because you're like, it's like, I'm safe. You can see the landscape in the distance, but you've got this cockpit like around you, and you feel safe. And then suddenly, whoa, fuck! It's like that feels great. And it's the same sort of thing as like the jumps over the canyons. It's like you've instantly got this whoa, Jesus. I was just thinking about this the other day. Like, it's something I noticed. The first time the second time I went to see Avatar, because I went to see it a second time because I was really interested in that whole kind of 3D stuff. And like the stuff that kind of really popped out and stood out then is the same stuff that's popping out in VR now. Right. Like the things that's making it work. Like one of the things that really made me feel like, fuck, this was really 3D in Avatar was when like the volcanoes had gone off and all this kind of like ash was coming down. And in VR, particle effects, just constant particle effects around you are brilliant for making you feel like the sense of movement, because you've like got these constant points of reference as you move through the world. And also like I was saying, the vertigo thing, there's a scene in Avatar where they walk out on or it pans out over this kind of like tree trunk over a cliff or something, and it goes from being like close to the ground to like whoa, and it's the same sort of thing. So it's really interesting. I just realised that the other day. I was like, Jesus, that's the same stuff that's kind of like working in VR. But it's cool stuff.
Cool.
Okay. Any other VR conversations we need to have here, or are they for another time now?
All I was going to say quickly was Battlezone. That sort of fidelity of visuals, that seems to me like the best they're going to get on Morpheus for VR performance.
Headmaster looks quite a lot nicer than that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Does
Headmaster
it?
Was, I think Headmaster was a little bit more...
because it's a retro game.
It's just a stylistic thing.
No.
I mean, Riggs looks pretty nice. I mean, it's all kind of semi-low poly, but I mean, it's not like it's all flat shaded or anything. You've got like proper textures and stuff on there. Riggs looks pretty good. I mean, it doesn't look good. It doesn't look like a next gen game, sure, but it's VR.
It's like Wipeout, isn't it? Kind of in mechs.
Yeah,
that looks a lot of fun actually.
And the thing is, you could make another Killzone, and you could make the prettiest game ever. I'm pretty sure that Riggs is going to make more jaws drop than another Killzone.
Yeah.
Just because it's VR.
Yeah. Also, I think they did a pretty good job with the Riggs trailer as well, like the way they were sort of demonstrating.
It's interesting to finally see like VR marketing, because it's a new thing.
Yeah,
and it's a hard problem for people to solve as well, for obvious reasons. But
they managed to, because they did the clear bit. They kind of, made it look a bit more inviting than perhaps.
It was kind of a clever move, really, to show people's kind of full facial reactions whilst showing, their acted facial reactions at least. Anyway,
people were playing the game. Pat. Sorry.
No, I don't think those people were playing the game. I mean, I think no. It really depends on the experience, Rob. I think like with things like Battlezone, like notice how much stuff is going on in that game. There's loads of like enemy movement and stuff. Like that's why it has to be that kind of simple aesthetic. I think if you were making something that was like we were saying earlier, like a Sherlock Holmes mystery thing where you've just got like one room and there's not much movement and stuff, you could make it look a lot nicer. So it really depends on the experience, I think. Like The Room or something. Yeah, absolutely. Rob, you said there was a bit of an anti-VR agenda in the wake of E3. What was that about? Just like today in the press, there was an article on Rock Paper Shotgun where John Walker, the cheery chap, he's the guy who called Peter Molyneux a perpetual liar or whatever.
Captain Clickbait, him. Okay, right.
Yeah, he just wrote a story likening VR with the adoption or lack of it with 3D TVs and how people. Oh God, that one again. People have been calling people out for that mistake
for like the last 3 years. Like, comparing VR to 3D TV is the dumbest thing ever. 3D TV was something to sell TVs. It was something that was pushed to consumers. Consumers never asked for 3D TV. It was something to sell televisions, something to sell new cinema experiences. People didn't ask for it. People asked for VR. That's the difference. Like, the Rift Kickstarter is still the quickest funded Kickstarter. Like, the fact that without even having a consumer product, that it's somehow generated like a multi-billion industry, and a huge sort of community of developers and enthusiasts and, you know, people who are just excited to, you know, to play it eventually when it does come out. Like, 3D TV, really? That's a joke. It's just not the same thing whatsoever. I mean, like, 3D TV, it does add a little bit of experience to certain things. Like, if you make films for it, you know, you can make stuff pop, and it is nice to have kind of depth there. I mean, essentially, we see in stereo, so I always thought of it less of a kind of a gimmick or a trick, that it's more just the evolution of looking at visual media, that it should be in 3D eventually. Of course it should be. And when stuff's easy and cheap to make, glasses 3D, TV will be 3D. It doesn't make any sense for it not to be. But the difference between just that and like having low latency head tracking, having wide field of view visuals, and having things which are tailored for, you know, inducing presence and making you feel like you're somewhere else, that's completely different to just rendering a 2D image in stereo and putting on a pair of glasses.
But I think it wasn't.
It's just such an old criticism. I just thought that had been put to bed a long time ago.
That article wasn't just about the 3D TV comparison. I mean, that was a bit of a lazy link that I think he was making. But I think he was saying it's going to struggle because, one, it's a niche audience that it's aspiring to. Two, the entry level price point I think is going to be quite high. All the peripherals and stuff you've got to buy. What was else he saying? Basically saying that no one's going to. He was saying that no one's going to invest an awful lot of money in developing content for it. Because it's
all valid points.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing, and I thought,
but you could have made them about television 50 years ago.
Exactly.
Right? So whenever television started, but
I don't.
You know what I mean? Like, exactly the same hurdles.
I don't want to compare it to 3D TV again, like he did. But if 3D TV didn't work, they couldn't then make a new one because it was going to work then, or it was not going to work at all. This is the first stage of VR, and this iteration will be a niche thing where maybe 1 in 10 people has it. But as long as the momentum builds from that, it will be a good groundwork and a good basis with which to let the hardware come down in size. Let people go, oh, you've got a thing. Like mobiles or tablets or iPads or iPods. The things that were all niched 10 years ago, 20 years ago, now we just take them for granted. There is the possibility that while his reservations are valid, a bit clickbaity, but valid, the amount of lessons that people can learn from 3D TV and from other things that have failed, the Connect and other things, that this doesn't have to go the way of those things. It doesn't have to. And I'm pretty confident that there are too many big companies involved and too many intelligent people involved, like Carmack and everybody else involved in creating the hardware and the systems, that I don't believe it will be a thing that doesn't work in some form next year. I don't think we'll all be walking around with headsets on next year on the train.
No, of course not. But do you know what else I think? Like the assumption is that VR gaming is the only thing that is going to launch VR.
Yeah, which is very narrow-minded.
I don't know where that assumption is coming. That's coming from the games media.
Well, no. The reason is that the only people that are actively interested in making like high-end 3D content at the moment are games designers.
Yes.
The only people who, in an industry which is already, at least somewhat ready to make content for this new medium that's never existed.
That's not entirely true, because
Well,
David
yeah,
Attenborough's
there's
doing
video stuff as well.
He's doing a deep blue coral thing or something. That's
Yeah,
gonna be,
of course. There's
that's
video stuff, there's TV stuff as
Yeah.
well. But what I mean is that there aren't a huge amount of people ready to make VR stuff because it's a new thing, and that's. I mean,
and it's still being built. Why would anybody want to throw money at something that's still being built?
Yeah, but at the moment, I mean, at the moment, those are the people that are developing for it. Those are the people that are excited about, developing 3D spaces anyway. So obviously, to them, that's just a new canvas to draw upon.
Yeah.
But I don't think VR will always be associated that much with gaming. Eventually, I think it will become more like your personal computer, your Mac, your PC, your whatever, that it's a multi-purpose device.
Yes.
And it just happens that gaming is one of the things it's really, really good for, and that there's certain things that can only be done in VR and don't work anywhere else, and those will be the killer apps. But even if, here's the thing, even if it only ever stayed a niche thing, if it was only ever like people who love playing flight sims, for example, it's going to be around forever.
Yeah.
It's never going to go away. VR will never go away because there's certain people like myself who will never be satisfied not having it in their lives. Because
those people in that niche they're the ones that spend the most on peripherals and hardware anyway.
Yeah.
Sort of like simulation things, because if it's a simulation and they want to get as close to the natural experience as possible.
Absolutely, and it's the right hardware for that experience. So it's even if it was that niche just in gaming, it's always going to exist in that form. But I really think it's going to be a lot bigger than gaming. And yeah, it's kind of annoying to hear these old kind of arguments about 3D TV and stuff like that, because they just are not relevant at all. They just don't apply to the device.
I think there's a lack of vision, really. There's also a bit of ignorance about the whole.
That is, I think that's one of the biggest obstacles for VR, is that it's the thing that you really have to show it to people, and the problem is there's a lot of people in the world that just don't have imagination, that just can't go. I've even stood to people and I said, you see everything around you, and stuff goes past, and the scale feels correct. It feels like the real world, but it looks like a computer, and they're like, so it's like a cinema screen but really big, and it's like, no, and then you show it to them I didn't. You tried to explain it to me and I just didn't get it, and now I know exactly. This is fucking ridiculous. It's going to change the world, and I've had that experience in the last couple of days. So yeah, it's ridiculous, but I don't know. I don't think that's much of an anti-VR agenda, more than just one misguided article, to be honest. The only thing of relevance I thought in that kind of vein was that Nintendo have said that they're not willing to do VR yet because they don't think it's fun, which I don't really understand.
That's because the Virtual Boy was not fun.
Yeah, but it seems to be a bit short, kind of small field of view. Do they not notice all the stuff that's going on around them?
Isn't their market perhaps isn't part of their market younger than 13, and that's the recommended age for the headsets for eye development not being an issue?
I don't think
Possibly.
I don't think the virtual world is ready for virtual Mario yet. Maybe it is.
No.
Yeah.
It'll be quite a terrifying experience, I think. Actually,
I've got a strong suspicion that Nintendo will do the AR route if they do any. If they go any way, I think they'll do AR rather than VR.
They will continue to do their own thing, and I will continue to not give a shit, and then they will eventually, like they did with the Wii, happen upon something, and capture lightning in a bottle, and it will be massive again, whatever they do. But yeah, I just almost completely ignored their stuff at E3, and apparently the people that did pay attention were just really let down as well, so I'm glad I didn't pay any attention to it. Apparently they utterly failed to inspire anyone.
What did they announce?
I don't know because I wasn't paying attention, but I understand that basically every.
Welcome to the Not Paying Attention podcast.
Yeah, no, but it was like, oh, here's a Metroid game that's like not the Metroid game. You
Oh
want.
yeah, actually, I did see that.
Here's a Donkey Kong game that you don't want. It was just like, yeah, continual disappointment.
Nintendo are the most guilty at just milking their own IP as much as possible.
Do you think they
You've
must
been
have
playing
just
this game
got?
for 20 years? Let's keep playing. Just like
It's like everything that you could think of that is awesome. Like Sony did that.
In 20 years, when we're
everything
playing,
that was-
now that's what I call Assassin's Creed. Well, I hope we laugh about this.
No, but like Sony just gave everyone everything they wanted, and they'll probably sell like loads of consoles and loads of Morpheuses. And I don't know what Nintendo are doing. They just seem to be sort of immune to like making bad decisions. It just blows my mind.
I think it really is down to the fact they've still got that IP, and like, I mean,
Massive
the
fan base.
four guys on this podcast may not care about those IPs, but a hell of a lot of people do, and you have to kind of bear that in mind.
I've got to
really.
say, having played a lot of Mario with my children, that it's the gameplay on there is a lot deeper than it looks. It's very easy to play.
yeah.
There's a
very fun,
reason
but
it's a
by God,
classic.
it's tough
There
to
is a
really,
reason.
to really pull it off, and it's very unforgiving. Actually, you know, it's hard. It's hardcore. It's hardcore, man.
I've never been good at Mario. I've
No,
never
sorry.
been good at that game.
I guess you kind of have to respect them in a way that they just make great games, and to hell with everything else.
They are all about gameplay. That's the thing. They're not about RPG elements, and they're not about stealth, and they're not about
No,
cover-based
certainly not
shooters.
about hardware.
They're certainly not about hardware. They're just about putting out stuff that kids can laugh and giggle about when they're playing it, and get angry and cross, and feel a sense of triumph when they win. And ultimately, that's
Good for them, man.
Well, this is why Nintendo remain to be successful. A lot of their content doesn't appeal to people in our age group and our demographic, perhaps, but there's a fuck of a lot of kids in the world, and there's a fuck of a lot of people that actually like that simpler gameplay experience. I say simpler, but that's a deceptive word.
Yeah.
I tell you what, I was at a friend's housewarming at the weekend, and there was a lot of kids there, and they were all sat around the TV, and I looked at it, and I was like, that is not Mario. And I said, is that Terraria? And they were all playing Terraria, like 4 kids. And it's sort of, you know, if Nintendo aren't careful, you know, the indie space is going to eat them, you know, for breakfast with all these other
But it won't, because
options.
Nintendo is known as a brand, but the indie space is not known as a brand.
No.
So there will always be people that...
Minecraft's a brand, but they're also owned by Microsoft now, obviously.
Yeah.
But Nintendo
just...
as an outputter of content is
probably a
speaks for
trusted
itself.
thing for parents with young kids.
Well, yeah, exactly. When you get Nintendo, you kind of know what you're going to get. It's just a different flavour, and that's the thing.
This has been the Not Playing Podcast in partnership with notlistening.co.uk. You can contact us on email at notplayingpodcast@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at notplayingpod. You can find the show notes for this show at notlistening.co.uk. And if you're listening to us on iTunes, then please do give us a review. Music by Miracle of Sound. And that's all for now. Thanks for listening. See ya.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
I suck at Call of Duty. There's no hope for me. I suck at Call of Duty. Can't even get a UAV. I suck at Call of Duty. There's no hope for me. I suck at